This is a story about having all the best intentions to finally get good. How I went in with an idea and a goal, and how we ended up creating something that didn't really meet this goal. How when we're learning, we want simple and easy to follow tips that end up becoming these rules that subconsciously guide our art to the point of personal stagnation. And how, when we recognise what these rules are for us, we can move beyond them and grow into the space that they have opened up, and discover who we are and what we enjoy. It starts off innocently enough. I'd just got back from Spiel and Golden Demon, where I was grateful to receive a notable entry. I managed to pick up Sandtrap early as well, and got the first 4 models of the JSA side done, to a stage I liked at least. And then it came to the one I was most excited to paint, the dual swords guy. Some assembly and priming later, and we're ready to go. It's time for the game plan, and the first rule we tend to follow. What's my plan for everything? What do I want the finished piece to look like? What vibe am I feeling for it? With this, I just want to refine my JSA scheme a bit, a red and green scheme without feeling too Christmassy. I start with the black. Jose has a fantastic tutorial on this, but what can we learn if we just follow and execute? Especially if we've done this recipe loads before like I have. So I wanted to cement my understanding of the theory that he's teaching by making adaptations. Using a very saturated bright colour to influence the tone of the black, instead of using a skin tone for a warm cloth like he has, I mix in some Sherwood green to create some green interest across my model and in the blacks. I repeat the same process he does, applying the base, mixing in the Sherwood green, and then mixing in greenish white instead of ivory into the final highlights. Instead of using a vibrant green all over the model, I keep the main colour and mute it down a bit to hide it. If we make the green and the red across the model the same high chroma, there's nowhere for the eye to rest, as everything looks exciting to it. Next, the white. I'm playing here, trying to get an interesting white that harmonises well with the greens and the blacks. A white that isn't just neutral, but one which is coherent and works with it. With this comes the second rule of painting. Paint in sections. This allows you to refine and play with your colours as you're still discovering the mixes. Then, after the mix is set, it's just a case of execution across the rest of the model. I'm starting this off with some warg flesh, a nice desaturated green, before working in more and more medium sea grey and then more and more greenish white. Finally, it's finished off with just pure white on the highest areas. I take my time at each layer to glaze and add stippling and lines all over the armour. This guy has a bit of a veteran feel to him, so I wanted the armour to reflect this. While I've done similar ideas to non-metallic metal for this, I think this has ended up being more of a beaten up composite plastic. Well, I'm not angry at that. It's nice to come up with something new, and I feel like I could try this again going forwards. I play with a bit of simple freehanding in the reds, adding chipping back over the top to blend it in. Just taking a few of the intermediary colours of what the white is and scratching them into the red. The red that I use for this is the same mix as what I did for the arm. So, the arm marks time for rule number 3. It's only good when it's perfectly smooth. This is something we see when it comes to a lot of those high level painters. So many of them who do well at events such as Golden Demon, you see so many perfect transition and blends between the colours, like I'm attempting here. I'm going from a black red to an antraise red into a bright orange. I'm slowly applying in the layers and glazing each one to keep it as thin as possible, trying to get the transition as smooth as I can. And doing this, you can see the fun getting sucked out the model for me. I can't continue like this. I'm not having fun anymore, agonising over each blend. This model is no longer something I want to finish, but something I want done, so I don't have to come back to it again. Now it's all just about trying to finish and get over this hurdle of fun. We move into a transition phase here. I'm running out of ways to make the model interesting. At the moment I've focused on green and red, 2 opposites on my colour wheel. So let's transition a bit into more of a square colour scheme by taking some yellow into the gems. A nice small hit of chroma around the place, just painting it in and out a bit to get a glow. A simple soul yellow with just a dot of white. This means that we're going to have to come in and add some blue purple later, but we'll cover that when we get to it. Right, it's time for the final rule we tend to follow. We know the method. Power swords. We we know how to do this, chuck a pattern, alternating light to dark. So that's what I do. Starting down in black red and working all the way up in this case here to a vibrant fluorescent orange, really trying to punch the interest. I'm taking the same recipe for the rest of the reds and just taking it a few layers higher with the new flow orange. And this is where I'm starting to come to the understanding of why I'm not having fun. When we paint, we tend to get into these silos of thinking that I already know how to do that. I know the next steps I need to take to get the result that I want, and it just becomes an exercise in painting by numbers. And that to me is not what I enjoy. I don't like army painting, my half-finished squig army will play witness to that. I tend to paint so many different things because I'm looking to keep it fresh, and I need to embrace this more. I took a first stab at the base, and it was just the right amount of creative freedom I needed to push myself through the rest of the model. However, I come back in later and redo it. So let's finish the model off with the purple. For the purple, I come in with just a black violet, then some straight violet on top, and finally mixing a bit of greenish white into it. Nothing new here. Same methods of painting for the arm, just different colours. And with that, we're finished with the model. I paint the elements on the base, and there's nothing really new there. Just pick an area of the model you've already done and apply it there. Now it's time for the base. And rule number 4 again. We know how to do them right, just dry brush and you're good. But what if we say no? What if we try something different and just see? We dry brush because we want random, and that tends to mean our bases just look like it's getting brighter and brighter the higher we get, each element highlighted the same. But that's not really how ground or earth behaves. What happens if instead of doing that, we take an old brush and we just tap and stipple, we could even sponge, to build up these layers of overlapping colours, and oh my god, what is this I've found? I've found something fun in the model again. Let's ride this high. This model I'm not happy with, but I'm finished with it. This model doesn't represent the drive to me to get good as it should have, but this is probably the model which has taught me the most about being an artist than any other model I've painted, even ones which I've won pins with. This model and the rest of these JSA miniatures represent the end of something. The end of trying to force myself down this ever-growing list of techniques we feel we have to master. The end of those rules which we aren't consciously aware of hanging over us and just focusing on the only part that matters, the enjoyment. I want to paint with what feels right to me, in a way that I find enjoyable, a way that expresses me first and foremost. I don't want to ever get to the end of a competition and come away feeling like I've wasted an ungodly amount of time painting something. I want to come away from a competition knowing that I enjoyed every hour of painting that model, no matter how many hours that was. Some people might say that this is me giving up on being good. And to those of you, I say, mastery of one technique, smooth painting for example, is only a mastery of a small slice of art. I choose to explore my art by breaking these rules that we tend to subconsciously follow at beginners and truly push myself forwards by going from painting by these rules to being guided by my feels.